Okay, we are recording and we can get started. Hey, and thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Teresa Becker with the Alaska Wildlife Alliance. And thanks again for joining for tonight's presentation. Next slide. A couple of virtual engagement guidelines. No Zoom bombing, obviously. We encourage your viewing in full screen mode, just makes it a little bit easier for you to see everything. When you come on, we have you muted and we have your video turned off. We ask that you leave it that way. Even as I go off and introduce the speakers, I'll do the same thing. They have a couple of fun, cute videos they want us to see, and we need to conserve as much bandwidth as possible for this presentation. We encourage questions, so please, if you have a question as we're going along, whoops, wait a minute, oh, there we go. If you have a question as you go along, use the chat function, and then I will be recording the questions as they go, and then I will ask them of Halley and Savannah at the end of the presentation. Most important, just enjoy and learn something new. Next, please. If you don't know who we are the Alaska Wildlife Alliance. AWA is an Alaska-based nonprofit organization protecting Alaska's wildlife. We've been around since 1978, and we do our conservation through citizen mobilization, advocacy, and education. Our Wildlife Wednesdays are part of our education program. If you are interested to go out onto our website and learn more about us, you can see us at www.akwildlife.org. For as little as $35 a year, you can join. And if you want to donate, along the bottom, you see ways you can support what we're doing through Facebook, Amazon Smile, Roundup, Pick, Click, Give, and the CFC. Next, please. Wanted to give you a little bit of information about some of the things that are on our social media. And I'm going I want to make sure I get this first one right. The first section provides some information and background. If you go out to our website and you see this polar bear out there, on the recent notice by the Bureau of Land Management announcing a lease sale of land set for January 6th in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. This lease sale focuses on the coastal plain area and would allow oil exploration and activity in an area of the refuge that is considered sacred for the Gwich'in people. I want to make sure I say that right too. It would also directly impact wildlife in area including caribou, polar bears, migratory birds, and many others. The trustees of Alaska, representing Indigenous people and a coalition of groups, including AWA, has filed a request for preliminary injunction to stop these leases. And Mandy, I'm going to ask you to come on for just a second because you have another more recent update on this issue.
It's associated with this issue, and we just found out that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed a draft incidental harassment authorization, or draft IHA, and they're now taking public comments. And what they're proposing is to allow the take of polar bears in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in the coastal plains associated with a seismic program. And polar bears are a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, and they have critical habitat designated in that area. And there's a concern that the Fish and Wildlife Service will be allowing take of polar bears while they're in their dens with their cubs. And this is a critical time period for the survival of the species. So I will go ahead and I will post in the comments a little bit of information and a link on where you can go ahead and put forth public comments to the Fish and Wildlife Service to let them know and how you can be a voice for wildlife in this case. So look for that in the public comments, and the comments are due by January 7th. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time on this one. So thanks.
Thank you, Mandy. Also, if you're interested in the specific issue of stopping the lease sales, you can go out to our website, and at the bottom there's a tab called the 30 Days of Action Toolkit down there, and it outlines different ways for people to advocate against specifically the lease sale stuff. The second tab takes you to a PowerPoint presentation recently given by our own John Morton, discusses the effects of warming, the climate warming on the Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound. It's very specific to our area down here. It talks about how climate change will affect availability of caribou, moose, and Sitka black-tailed deer specifically. The third post that I put up there just takes you to Alaska Wildlife Alliance's winter newsletter, which gives a lot of background and information on some of the things that we've been working on over the last year, including things like the Kenai Rule, the Pebble Mine, and wolves on the Prince of Wales Island. If you want to get our newsletter, it's free. You just sign up for it, and it comes every month. Next slide, please. One of the nice things, we went virtual with our Wildlife Wednesdays when COVID started coming, everything went to virtual. One of the nice things about that is that they're always out there. And so you can go back out and look at Wildlife Wednesdays that you may have missed in the past. This, the first portion is a list of Wildlife Wednesdays that have already occurred that you could go out and look. Upcoming Wildlife Wednesdays, we have a few others in the pipeline, but we have one on February 3rd, titled In Wild Trust, the McNeil Experience by Jeff Fair, which talks about the McNeil Bear Sanctuary. On February 17th, ADF&G, as Michael Booz and Holly Dixon are going to come in and talk about clam populations in the Cook Inlet, with a focus on what everybody wants to know is when are the clams coming back to Ninilchik and to Clam Gulch. Next, please. All right. My funnest job here is to get to introduce the presenters, and thank you both for being here. We are proud to host two of the SeaLife Center's wildlife specialists who will tell us about their 2020 wildlife response programs. First is Halley Werner. I've been practicing this all night. So, she started in wildlife rehabilitation 15 years ago at a rehabilitation center in New England. She joined the Alaska SeaLife Center in 2009 and has worked as an intern, a manager, and everything in between. Halley is an integral part of ASLC's wildlife rehabilitation program. Next is Savannah Costner. I got that right? She fell in love with seals when she was 5 years old. She has been an animal care specialist with the SeaLife Center since 2015 and is an invaluable asset to the wildlife response program. Halley and Savannah, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm going to go ahead and start off our presentation. So Savannah's got the control. I'll let you know when to switch over. I'm going to start with a little bit of background about the SeaLife Center in general, just so people are aware of where we work and how we're able to operate. So the SeaLife Center opened in 1998. The funding and financial support for development and construction of the SeaLife Center came from state and city support. Exxon Valdez Oil Spill Trustee Council provided quite a bit of funding, as well as private donations. We are, however, a nonprofit organization, which means that funding that was provided to help us construct and make the SeaLife Center a reality is no longer what keeps us going. So instead, we're relying primarily on grants, donations, and ticket sales in order to continue carrying out our mission. We are a public aquarium, but not only that, we have a strong focus in research, rehabilitation, and education. So we are here to talk with you about the rehabilitation aspect and our wildlife response team. And that being said, we are the only marine mammal rehabilitation facility in Alaska. So we have a pretty big job to do. The goals of the wildlife response team, number one goal, as you might suspect, is to rehabilitate marine mammals for release whenever possible. I say whenever possible because we do sometimes have an occasion where an animal, though recovered and can survive under human care, may not be able to survive in the wild. So in those instances, that animal is then prepared for placement in a permanent facility. Another reason why we wouldn't be able to release an animal would be due to permit restrictions. So there are a number of instances where, although we would love to release an animal, that's just not appropriate. So we do what we can to prepare those animals for life under human care. Another main goal is to gather knowledge. So there are a ton of different reasons why we're gathering this knowledge. There are research projects presently going on, and future research projects can dip into our data, and that can help with their research. We also want to improve the best practices of animal care. So the SeaLife Center has been rescuing, rehabilitating marine mammals for over 20 years. And as you can imagine, over those 20 years, we've certainly been improving our practices and learning how to better care for these animals. We're gathering knowledge about the health of the ocean. All the animals that come in are telling a story. So we're able to learn what's going on out in the ocean based on what diseases the animals have, what injuries they have, all sorts of different information that they can provide helps us to understand what the health of the ocean is like. And we also do a lot of disease monitoring. So for example, any bird that comes through our doors gets tested for avian influenza. And that's just one example of the many different diseases that we're continually monitoring for. And finally, a third goal of our wildlife response team is to train volunteers. So all of the staff here at the SeaLife Center working in wildlife response has been trained, obviously, to work with these animals, and we are all continuing to learn. And whenever we get volunteers and interns that come through our doors, we want to teach them as much as we possibly can too, so they can continue to do the good work we're trying to do. Next, Savannah. Oh, there it is. It looks like I have a little bit of a delay. So everything we do, we have permits for. We can't do anything without the appropriate permissions. Our permits and authorizations are under 2 different government agencies. As you can see, their logos on the screen here. We have U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They're responsible for management of birds as well as walrus and sea otters. Those are the animals we work with under Fish and Wildlife Service permits. And National Marine Fisheries Service under NOAA, they provide the permissions for the remainder of the animals we work with here at the SeaLife Center. And not only, back one more, Savannah, sorry. I just want to bring attention to the map up in the top right corner. Not only do we have permits through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries Service, NOAA, but there are also stranding agreement holders throughout the state of Alaska under NOAA. And these folks, again, hold a stranding agreement, which means they can help in the event of a stranded marine mammal. So then if it's an animal that needs to come in for rehabilitation, they can contact us, and we always have communication going between us and those stranding agreement holders. So we're the only rehabilitation facility, but there are other people in the state of Alaska that are caring about the stranded marine mammals of Alaska. Now we're ready for the next one. I just want to point out some of the challenges that we face that are pretty unique to Alaska. The first one being Alaska is really big. A lot of you have probably seen a map similar to that photo I've got, or that graphic I've got up there of Alaska laid on top of the lower 48, and Alaska's really big. So tons of coastline that we need to cover. Another quick fun fact to kind of help grasp that idea. California has 3 major, very large marine mammal rescue and rehabilitation facilities, in addition to a bunch of small ones. And Alaska has about 10 times the amount of coastline as California, and 1 Alaska SeaLife Center. So we've got a lot to cover. The road system in Alaska is not particularly impressive. The majority of the main roads are in South Central, Kenai Peninsula, Anchorage, and then the farther you branch out from there, there just aren't very many roads. So we need to rely on other modes of transportation, whether it be a fishing vessel or flight, airplane. Don't know if we've had any helicoptered in, but oh yes, we have baby beluga. So we're relying on all sorts of different modes of transportation, which is logistically very challenging. The weather is logistically challenging. A lot of times it delays a flight. There may only be 1 or 2 flights a week and an animal might miss it. So that really makes us think about how we're going to make things happen or what is actually in the best interest of the animal. Communication is hard. I lose calls all the time. So sometimes we're dealing with satellite phones with people out fishing or out in remote locations. A lot of times in the villages, people don't have access to internet. So when we're asking for a photo to help assess an animal, we might not be able to get that photo. And then we're also dealing with a subsistence lifestyle. So there are definitely many people in the state of Alaska that don't believe rehabilitation is the right thing to do. And we need to respect that. So we just work with a variety of different people, different lifestyles. And again, that's just one more challenge that we sometimes encounter when it comes to dealing with a call about a possibly injured or orphaned animal. Next, please. So this is what we really want to see, all these cute pictures. We've got this slide here that lists all of the species of live marine mammal admits that the center has seen in the history of our wildlife response team. Quite a few different species. I've included some of my favorite photos in there too. So feel free to stare at those for a few seconds. Obviously, some species we see more often than others. So Savannah, if you want to go to the next, you're going to see that our most common admits are harbor seals and northern sea otters. Next slide. It's also definitely worth mentioning that our wildlife response team does respond to dead animals as well. So our vet services and wildlife response team will go out to larger dead animals to collect data. Again, one of our main goals to help try to find out why these animals are dying. The smaller animals, if there is a deceased animal in our area, we will have it brought to the SeaLife Center and again, do some investigation to see what happened with that. But again, we want to talk about the nice, cute, maybe cute little baby seals and sea otters and the animals that come through our doors on a regular basis. So we're going to focus on that tonight. And I believe the next slide is where Savannah is going to start talking about this year's cases.
Yep. So we're going to do a little bit of numbers first before we get into the cute little pictures and cases that we have this year. So overall, we've had around 357 reports of distressed animals. Those numbers have gone up a little bit. Those numbers are from the beginning of November, I believe. That is a slight decrease from last year as far as reports go. And of those 357 cases, we responded to 59. How does that 59 break down? Well, it breaks down into 6 citations that we responded to. Just like Halley said, we will send our vet team out or have volunteers go out and help with the necropsies. 23 of those were from pinnipeds, so our seals, sea lions, and walrus. 6 of those cases were sea otters, and 24 of those cases were birds. Now, the sea otter number usually is quite a bit higher, but due to COVID, we were unable to respond to a lot of the carcasses out on the beach, as well as we changed how we report our sea otters or how we count our sea otters. So that number decreased a little bit due to that. But going into our sea otters, of those 357 calls, 188 were about sea otters, and we brought in 9 of those cases. So you'll see the acronyms: 2 left at scene, 1 we released, 1 was unfortunately euthanized, 1 was dead on arrival, and 1 we transported, and 3 are still here at ASLC. Let's talk about the kiddos who are that we brought in. So we have Spruce here, who came in at 2 weeks old. He was admitted January 17th from McDonald's Spit, which is right across the bay from Hoover. And he was found on the beach covered in ice, emaciated and dehydrated. He was only here for a short while, a little over a month, before we transported him to SeaWorld San Diego. Our next kiddo, we have Lupin, or Lulu, that's how I like to call him. He came here at 7 to 14 days old on July 9th. He was also found in Homer. His story is a little bit unusual or unfortunate. He was picked up by multiple families. And so we had asked the first family to put him back on the beach. We always want to make sure that we're not kidnapping pups. And unfortunately, he just kept getting picked up. And at one point, he was even in an RV. So we definitely needed to make sure that we bring him in. And he is still here with us today, thriving. And then we have Pushki. Pushki came in at just 2 weeks old. He was admitted November 12th from Homer, just observed alone on the beach for an extended period of time. So we knew that we needed to step in before he went into hypoglycemic shock. He is still here and he is still under 24-hour of care, which is what Halley and I are mainly in charge of doing the overnights. So we're night owls. And our newest advent, which is why we are running around like crazy here recently, EL 2010. So EL and Hydrolutris, 20 for the year, 10. She is our 10th sea otter case that we've responded to. So I guess we need to go back and fix that number. She came in just 6 days ago, December 10th from Anchor Point. She unfortunately was found near a scavenged carcass that we may believe to be Mom. She was following around people and vocalizing and came in critical condition. She is still here and she is still under 24-hour care. And we are cautiously hopeful that she's going to be pulling through and doing really well. And then Zippy. I love Zippy. Zippy is probably, don't tell, one of my favorite cases of this year, just because I feel like his story really resonates with me. So Zippy was first reported March 30th with a zip tie around his right wrist. So if we look at the photo, we can see this pink thing right here, and it is actually wrapped around his wrist. But if we're looking at this photo, his coat looks great. He doesn't seem to be too skinny. So for right now, we're really going to be monitoring him. Hopefully the zip tie can fall off. Well, a month later, April 24th, we now see that that zip tie has gotten tighter and is actually into his skin. We also see that he's gotten a little bit skinnier, so this is probably stopping him or obstructing him from going out and getting the food that he needs. So we knew we needed to step in. So if you look on the right, what we did, we logged every single report at the time we got the report to try to get an idea of a pattern so we knew where to be in order to try to catch him. Well, we didn't catch him for a month later. This kiddo was all over the place. But finally, on May 25th, he hauled out, actually right kind of behind the SeaLife Center. And you can see our husbandry director in the mode, ready to go catch this otter. And it went really well. So we got him on the table. We took the zip tie off and we did some x-rays. And the x-rays showed, well, not the best case scenario. So we have his left paw on the left side. You can see nice, clean lines. Everything looks really gorgeous. And we look at the right paw, you can see just where that zip tie was, as well as you can see kind of this fuzzy bits between his bones as well as up into his wrist. What does that mean? Unfortunately, that means that zip tie has caused a bone infection. We know bone infections take months to heal. So what does that mean for Zippy? Zippy, we typically see adult sea otters come into rehab and not do so well. They stop taking care of their coat, they stop eating. So are we going to be able to help this animal? And you can just see just how swollen that was, that zip tie really caused a number on that paw. Well, it was good news. So our veterinary director reached out to our partners at the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, California. They sent up a special injectable antibiotic. And this antibiotic worked wonders, absolute wonders. You can see released July 1st. So a little month after he came into us, we were able to release him back out into the ocean. We're still getting reports of him hanging around, so we're super glad and exciting that he is out there thriving and that we could help him. I'm just over the moon for this animal. Why do we think Zippy did so well? Well, he was just a really chill and relaxed otter. And you can see the wound on his right wrist. It's still a little swollen. We didn't get it 100%, but we wanted to make sure that he was able to get out there, out in the ocean, and that saltwater will do wonders for him. So a little bit about our bird cases. We had 24 cases in all, 7 DOAs, so dead on arrivals, 3 euthanasias, 4 deaths. We transferred 4 up to bird TLC, and we had 6 releases here at the SeaLife Center. We had 11 species among those 24 cases. A majority, like I said, were dead on arrival or released. Of those various conditions, we saw emaciated, wing injuries, and anthropogenic human causes, like window strikes, power lines, or stuck in a fish waste in the harbor, like this little guy down in the bottom corner. He was with us for a little while. We gave him prescribed baths and dried him off a bit before we were able to release. And this eagle up top, we actually sent to bird TLC. Now let's talk about our ice seals. So we did only get 2 ice seal cases this year. 1 died and 1 was left at the scene or returned back to the water. So the one that came here to the SeaLife Center was a 4-old-day pup, ring seal pup from Kotzebue. She had sepsis and frostbite and unfortunately died overnight. And then we had another ring seal pup a little bit later in the month and from Nome, and that kiddo just returned right back to the water, which is best case scenario. So harbor seals, one of our most popular, most admitted patients. We had 13 cases. 1 was left at the scene. 5 were unfortunately dead on arrival. 1 died, and 6 were released. So I'm going to start from the bottom up. PV 2009, Juno, he was our dark morph seal. I didn't include a photo on this slide because I like to keep the mystery of a dark morph seal. We did have our Cook Inlet seal squad. So we got in 5 skinny abandoned dependent pups just from the Cook Inlet this year. And then we had PV 2002 or Tsuga. She was our premature pup. How can we tell premature pups? Well, you can see in this photo in the top, that white fluffy coat is called a lanugo, and harbor seals should shed that in utero. She came out, or we found her with that still on, so we knew that she was premature. She died due to an underdeveloped GI as well as a collapsed lung. But we want to make sure we remember her as the cute little seal that she was. This was one of her first swims. We are super lucky to get to witness these milestones with these kiddos and watch them really learn how to swim, learn how to dive, really explore the water, their flippers, and things like that. Moving on to 2004 or Kenai. She was admitted June 2nd from Kenai. Now for our Cook Inlet Seal Squad, pay attention to the next 5 kiddos and the dates that they came in. Within a 10-day period, we got in 5 seals. It was absolutely insane. She came to us at 7 days old. She was dehydrated and emaciated. She did suffer from a couple of seizures as well as some skin issues that we were able to a little bit resolve. And she was released August 27th. And of course, one of the best parts of my job is to take glamour shots to get them ready for release. And so you can see her fat and sassy self in these glamour shots. You can also see that we put colorful dots on their head. That was just to be able to tell them apart. We did take them off before we released them back out into the ocean. 2005, Kanikanick. He was probably my favorite seal of the season. He came to us June 3rd from Samatov at just 3 days old. He was underweight, still had his or umbilical cord partly attached. You can kind of see the stump a little bit right there. Things to note, he was slow with fish school. He needed a little bit of extra help which we were glad to provide with him. We do think he did have megaesophagus or an enlarged esophagus, so that maybe played a little bit into why he was struggling with this school a little bit. We don't really know. And he was also satellite tagged when we released him on August 27th. You can see these great glamour shots of Kinnikinnick. He was just super friendly and playful, which is why I think he stole my heart. But we have 06 Ockpick. She came June 10th from CeeLo. She came to us at just a week old. She was very dehydrated when she came to us, emaciated, and had an umbilical cord infection. So right off the bat, she had a lot going on. When she first came to us, she had really, really low temperatures. So she was actually inside. You can see this heating pad right up against the wall. We were cleaning her tote, so that'll actually go right under her. So she was inside on her heating pad with the door closed. These kids live in really cold water, right? So we know that she was super, super cold, needing all of this extra help, but no worries. We were able to release her on August 27th. You can see her glamour shots are all in the water. Once she realized that she could like stay in the water, she was like, I don't need you guys. I'm a water seal. Bye. And then little 07 or Bluebell, she was our smallest seal of the season. She came to us June 10th from Callaghan Island at just a week old. She was dehydrated, emaciated, as well as had an umbilical cord infection. Things to note, she was just very vocal. Her first week here, she was just singing the song of her people nonstop. Super cute. She slowly worked her way from it, but she was a cutie as well as released on August 27th. When I say she was our smallest seal, I meant smallest as in length. You can see in these glamour shots on the left side, she fattened up quite nicely. I think she got that very round figure just because she was one of our shorter seals. And then 08, Chica, super cute, came to us June 9th from Turnagain Arm at 3 days old. She was underweight, and because she was found on the mudflats in the Turnagain Arm, she had a very muddy umbilical cord stump. And so we had to really clean that off, really make sure no infection would set in because of that. Also, during her time here, when we did x-rays, we thought she may have an enlarged heart. We sent those x-rays out to a specialist, and they were like, nope, she looks all good. So she was released August 27th. Super cute little glamour shots. She was very photogenic. She knew her ankles. And then 09 or Juno, our dark morph seal, who came to us June 16th at just 5 days old. He came to us underweight and with an umbilical cord infection. Things to note, he was a feisty one. He gave us a run for our money. And he was also satellite tagged. You can see in our bottom right, there he is at Alaska Air Cargo. When we get kiddos in, we try to always release them back in the same geographical location. So we shipped them off to Juneau, and our NOAA partners there were able to release them in the exact same location that they caught him in. And he was released August 27th. And here is his fattened up glamour shot. When I say he was feisty, he was very feisty, and he just wanted to be under the water anytime he saw us. So he gets one glamour shot of the season. And then I mentioned when we released these kiddos, they had satellite tags, right? So you can see it's just like this nice little backpack that sits right on their back. It is affixed to them, it's glued. No worries, they'll just lose that once they molt next year, the beginning of the season, around April or May. And so you can see Kinnikinnick with his, as well as Ockpick with hers. Well, what do satellite tags do exactly? They give us the location anytime that little antenna pops above the water and the satellites are in the right area of where the kiddos are. So for some reason, it didn't like Juno's. Here is Juno's. You can see we released him, and he decided he really liked this bay. He said, I'm happy here. I don't need to go anywhere else. What do we know? We know that there's fish there. We know that he feels safe there. So it's really cool data that we like to see. And we also know that they're out there and they're thriving, right? Because that satellite tag is out there moving around. It's a good sign. And this is Ockpick's. So we released her over in Kenai up here. She went down, she went back up. She said, okay, I lied. This was Kinnikinnick's. They were out of order. No. Okay. Ignore everything you just saw. So this is Ocpix. We released her in Kenai. She went down to the mouth of the Cook Inlet, and then she went a little bit out and she said, nope, I'm happy right here in the Cook Inlet. I don't need to go anywhere else. And then if we look at Kinnikinnick, Kinnikinnick was released at the exact same day as Ocpix. Up in Kenai, you can see he left the bay. He said, I don't need Cook Inlet, and is down here hanging around the Aleutian Islands. What is he doing? We don't know. He must have followed fish down there. We're still getting pings and still getting readings from him. So we know he's doing his thing out in the Aleutians. It's pretty cool that we know that he's traveled that far, and just super interesting. So this year we definitely had quite a bit of challenges due to COVID-19. We had to wear additional PPE like eye protection. You can see our beautiful model Halley wearing these face shields as well as these N95 masks. We had to wear anytime we were within 6 feet of another person, as well as with our sea otters. And we also had to wear an extra layer of clothes. Typically we do wear the extra layer, but sometimes we'll get away without wearing a jacket on really super hot days, but we had to this year, and it was hot and sweaty. It was a mess. Unfortunately, we did not have any seasonal staff or interns due to COVID. So we had to come up with creative schedulings, XY teams, as well as trying to fit in how do we make sure all of our SEALs are getting their 8 a.m., their noon, their 4, their 8 p.m., and their midnight feeds. That's so many feeds without any interns. We are super thankful and super grateful for our local and internal volunteers. We would not have been able to do this summer without them. They were absolutely incredible and saved our sanity, and we are so thankful for them. We did have to halt our volunteer response in Homer, though, due to NOAA as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Due to COVID, a lot of our responses required 2 people. And because of the regulations NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife response put in place, if it required 2 people, we were not allowed to respond. As well as you all may have heard, we did have a temporary closure of ASLC, and we lost a major source of our funding. And so we were actually unsure if the SeaLife Center would even stay open. But super grateful, the community as well as corporations with donations came through, and we are able to stay open. And we just want to give a huge shout out to our volunteers as well as the community. We would not be here without you guys calling in these animals, as well as helping us get through the photos, which I think Halley is now going to talk about what to do if you see an animal. And first and foremost, call first.
Thank you, Savannah. Yeah, so everyone wants to know, how can we help? What do I do when I see an animal? And these animals are super cute. They often appear to be in distress. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We don't know right away. So we want to encourage everyone to call our Stranded Marine Animal Hotline, which is manned 24 hours a day. Savannah and I are here in the middle of the night, so you might get one of us if you call us at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. But anyway, that our hotline is posted right there. And we just want to hear from you. We want to be able to assess the situation before any action is taken. And this is exactly how we're going to assess this situation. We want to figure out if the pup is abandoned. So just some quick tips that we can teach you right now about different species that we often get calls about. So seals will leave their young for periods of time while they forage. So if you do see a young seal on the beach, even if it looks like it has tears and it's crying, or it's vocalizing and crying, making that cute little maw sound, That doesn't mean that it's abandoned. And like Savannah mentioned earlier, the last thing we want to do is go kidnapping baby animals. That's not what we're here for. So again, it's really important just to leave that animal exactly where you found it. Maybe take a few steps back to make sure you aren't causing it additional stress, and give us a call. If a pup is moved, then mom is much less likely to be able to find it if it's returned later, or she's less likely to approach the beach because the people are considered a danger. So she's not going to come get her pup. Sea lion pups, they make it a little bit easier for us because they should be born on offshore rookeries. So if we do see a sea lion pup on the home or spit beach like that, then that's probably a reason for concern. But again, give us a call. We want to see pictures. We want to hear the story before we go ahead picking up a baby sea lion. Sea otters are quite different from the seals, and they're extremely dependent on their mothers for survival. So the mothers will leave a pup usually floating on the surface of the water for very brief periods while they forage, but they always come right back as soon as they're done getting their food and scoop up their baby. So once a sea otter pup is removed from the wild, they cannot be released again. Anything under 6 months of age, which is every single little sea otter pup that's super fluffy and really, really cute, and no one can resist picking it up. Once that's under human care, we actually are unable to release them. They rely on mom so very much, and we need to become mom, that we can't teach them all the skills that mom would teach them in the wild, and they become very dependent on people. So again, we don't want to kidnap any babies. Next slide, Savannah. So what can you do? We don't want you to pick it up. So what can you do? Obviously, we want you to give us a call, but you can also be prepared by taking a photo, trying not to disturb the animal while you take a photo, and giving the animal plenty of space. Again, our presence is stressful, especially if an animal is in distress. Adding more stress to that situation definitely is not helping. If there are other people around or people with dogs on the beach, you can be an immense help by keeping those people away from the animal. And there are some questions that we're going to ask you when you give us a call, so be prepared to answer these questions. What does the animal look like? Is it skinny? Is it really weak? Is it injured? Can you see a cut on it or a wound? Is the animal alone, or are there other animals around? And how long have you been observing the animal for? And once you call us, we're going to guide you as to what the next step will be. So that's what you can do if you find an animal. Those are really the very most important steps you can take. And I'm going to say those are the most important steps you can take if you find any animal in distress, even if it's a bird and you're planning to call bird TLC, if it's a land mammal and you're going to call someone else, another rescue organization or animal control or the police station, people are going to ask you similar questions, and that's just a great way that you can help make an initial assessment. But how else can you help? What if you never find a distressed animal on the beach? That's great. We don't want them to be there distressed. But there are many ways that you can help the SeaLife Center continue to do all of these great things that we're trying to do and continue with our mission. You've probably heard of Amazon Smile. We definitely are a nonprofit that is on Amazon Smile. So if you haven't already chosen a nonprofit, I urge you to choose one, whether it be Alaska SeaLife Center, Alaska Wildlife Alliance. There are so many great ones out there. And yeah, we are one of them. We will graciously accept your Amazon Smile donations. We also have an Amazon wish list, and some people find this to be a really fun way to support the Alaska SeaLife Center. There's so many great things on there. Some of them are extremely practical, like towels. Some of them are items that the staff need to safely carry out our tasks. Others are toys. We have these otter pups that are extremely playful and curious, and we need to keep their minds stimulated. So there are so many toys on there. And there's also items not just for wildlife response, but all over the SeaLife Center. Every department that has needs has items on this wish list. So that's a great way to help us out. You can adopt an animal, go to our website, and you can choose from a few different marine animals that you can adopt, and you'll get a stuffed animal. So that's a really fun way to become a member of the SeaLife Center. You can just donate. If you got spare money, go for it. And obviously we rely heavily on our volunteers, and there are opportunities both in Seward and in Homer. Opportunities vary a little bit depending on location, but if you are in either of those locations and interested in volunteering, go ahead and take a look at our website or give us a call. You have our hotline. We'll talk to you. We'd be happy to. And just some more resources for you. If you want to know more about the Alaska SeaLife Center, about our wildlife response team, about what we do, we have a website. We have all the social media pages. We're actually on a TV show, so that's pretty cool. I don't know if you've heard about the show called Alaska Animal Rescue. It premiered last summer on Nat Geo Wild, and Savannah's a star. She is, but it's really cool. It follows the SeaLife Center as well as the Conservation Center up in Girdwood, and the Raptor Center down in Sitka. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's streaming on Disney Plus, and it's really cool. You can always visit us. Last year we did Freezing Wednesdays. This year we're doing Thank You Thursdays. So Alaska residents, you get in free on Thursdays throughout the winter. So please come visit us. And we also have a great new program called Virtual Visits. We're all going virtual this year. Everybody's doing it. So we have some pretty cool programming that's scheduled on Tuesdays and Wednesdays into March. So head to our website and check those out. And you can learn so much more about the animals and what we do at the SeaLife Center and the animals that live at the SeaLife Center. Of course, we have permits. That was our obligatory permit slide. All of the photos that you've seen were taken through the permission of our Fish and Wildlife and NOAA authorizations. Cute little pictures. Savannah, who is this? Is this Lupin? No, this is Pushki. Pushki. We have to end with that. That is all that we have, I believe. So I'm going to hand it over to Teresa again to do some closing statements. I think we're going to have some time for questions too.
Oh, yes, that was absolutely a wonderful presentation. And for everybody that's out there, I've been trying to keep track of the questions. Some of them got answered after they were asked. So if I don't get to a question that you want, put it in the chat and I'll take a look again before we finish up. So one of the questions was, are there any hypothesis? You said there so many seals came in at the same time this year. Do you have any hypothesis why so many came in at the same time? Was there something going on that was causing that?
I do not have any hypothesis. I don't know, Savannah, if you do. They heard that we didn't have any interns and COVID was around, so they all just wanted to come at once. But no, in all seriousness, every year is different. And every year we have absolutely no idea when these animals are going to come in. We don't know how many. We don't know where they're going to come from. We don't know what's going to be wrong with them. So, I mean, that's just part of wildlife rehabilitation. It's a new surprise every single day. I mean, one year we got 3 walruses within a week. Why did that happen? I have no idea. So it just keeps us on our toes.
And then the ones that you released in Kenai, everybody was so interested in that, and I talked to you directly about that, but they split up. And so one of the questions that I had, and I thought maybe you could address it again, is why did they split up? I guess we thought if they got all released together and they sort of knew each other, they would hang out, but that's not what seals are.
We were
You're
both
looking at each other like, who's going to answer this question? They didn't seem to stay together. They seemed to go all different directions.
Yeah, so harbor seals in general are, for the most part, solitary animals. They will kind of congregate in places where other harbor seals are, because there's kind of like safety in numbers kind of thing, but they're not too sociable. So one thing is like they could have gone off to hunt a different like bait ball of fish and then just got separated from the group and was just like, well, here I'm here now. Every seal that we got in the summer had a little bit of a different personality. So I definitely think that kind of had a play in it. But for the most part, I didn't really expect them to stick together just because knowing harbor seals in general, they're a little bit on the solitude side. Plus, the Cook Inlet is much bigger, much bigger than any pool that we have here. So I think just the amount of space that they had, they're like, oh, we'll catch up later, and just never did. I don't know if Halley has any input, but
nope. And then you mentioned that you all had to wear specific PPE. Did you have specific concerns with marine mammals getting COVID?
That's a really good question. Obviously, we just wanted to be cautious to begin with. We don't want to risk passing any diseases to marine mammals. I mean, every year that's a concern for us. But we're always disinfecting our clothing and our boots and their enclosures. This year, we actually were presented with a list of protocols from NOAA that they wanted us to follow while handling the species that they manage. And we just went ahead and carried those protocol over to the fish and wildlife animals as well. Again, we just wanted to be extra cautious. Some of you may have heard about the mink over in Europe that have, I mean, entire mink farms have been culled just because of COVID outbreaks. And sea otters are actually in the same family as mink. So that's a huge concern. So I guess the short answer is yes.
That makes complete sense. And I know coronaviruses in general, belugas can get them, for example, maybe not the same strains, right? Okay. So, can you put the phone number back up for the stranding hotline, just in case anybody missed that part? And then I will, so follow up on the COVID question. There has been some speculation that humans can spread it to marine mammals via wastewater discharge. Have you guys heard anything about that?
not that anything has come down our line. We haven't heard anything about that. So I wouldn't be able to say yay or nay, but it's very interesting. And I definitely think I'm going to let our veterinary director know just in case.
Yeah, okay. And then we have a question. What does the typical, oh wait, my questions. What does the typical schooling or career path look like for someone who wants to work in animal rehabilitation like you guys? What did you have to do?
So my degree is in biology, and first thing I did was get an internship. You just need to get your foot in the door, whether it's volunteering or as an intern. And really, it just needs to be in some sort of animal care and husbandry field. Even if you really want to specialize in rehabilitation, we want to know that you have the sense and the skills to take care of an animal. And then your skills just build as you go on. So again, I have a bachelor's degree in biology, and I got my foot in the door with that internship, have been caring for animals ever since. My skill set still continues to grow. I don't know if Savannah wants to add anything about her story.
So for the main, I'm the same way as Halley. I have a degree in marine biology. But for the most part, I always knew I wanted to work with marine mammals. And in my degree, I took a grand total of 2 classes pertaining to marine mammals. So really bouncing off of Halley, it's your internships, it's your volunteer, it's getting out into the field, it's meeting the people, networking, and really getting a nice base layer of working with animals and making sure that you have what it takes to work with animals.
Thank you. And then let's see. I think that one was answered, the Coven question. I think I got it. I think I got all the questions. Wait a minute, I see one new message down here. Okay, oh yeah, Mandy's putting the marine animal hotline back up again. You have an awful lot of comments in the chats. Thanking you for your wonderful presentation. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So thank you guys very much. You have done a wonderful job and continue to do a wonderful job saving our marine mammals out there. Thank you for doing this presentation too. I really appreciate you coming out here and doing this. I know you're time critical. You got a new rescue in just recently, and I know you have a lot to do working with that animal, but thank you also to all of our AWA members and supporters. Without your donations, we could not offer these educational programs. And thank you especially to everyone who participated tonight for caring about Alaska's wildlife. If you could, before you leave and before you sign off, everybody, if you could tell us where you're from. It's very interesting to us to see how far away people have signed on to our educational classes from. So if you could do that, thank you so much. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. Jet skis will soon be legal in Kachemat Bay. Do you know of data from other places that might give us some ideas what the potential impact, if any, we might expect here near Homer? So what do you think about jet skis?
I honestly am not familiar with any data about places where jet skis are legal. There are jet skis in Resurrection Bay, and we still have sea otters and seals and sea lions. I don't know if there's been any impact regarding them or not, unfortunately. So sorry, I don't really have an answer to that.
I'm certain that there will be a study once they start allowing jet skis out there. I'm sure somebody will look at it and probably. Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you to everybody. I'm going to, that's all the questions. Wait a minute. I just want to make sure that the messages are just hi from and where they're from and not another question. Thank you, Halley. Thank you so much, Savannah. You guys have done a wonderful job tonight. I am going to turn off the recording. Let's see, make sure, stop the recording.